Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson now answering questions about his response to last week's school shooting in Oregon. Earlier, he said that he would sacrifice himself to help stop a shooter. Some critics have called that insensitive to the victims, but here was his response yesterday.
Dr. Carson, can you clarify your statements on the Oregon shooting?
What needs clarification?
I guess there's an implication that you're saying that the students didn't do enough to save themselves.
No, I just said nothing about them. I said what I would do.
And can you say what you would do?
I would ask everybody to attack the gunman because he can only shoot one of us at a time. That way we don't all wind up dead.
Joining me now, Republican presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson. He is also author of the new book, A More Perfect Union, written with his wife, Candy. Dr. Carson, welcome. Good to have you here this morning. Some people look at even that, the response, and say, you sort of chuckled at the end, that you're somehow making light of this, that your reaction has been insensitive to these victims.
I was chuckling at the silly reporters, at not being able to understand such a simple concept as, if you know somebody's going to kill you, and they're going to sit there and systematically kill you one by one, why would you sit there and wait for them to do that?
But see, some people hear that and they say, these poor victims, they did the best they could, and that it sounds, I understand what you're trying to say underneath, but the problem sometimes is the way it comes across, and it's something that you've run into time and time again with the comment on Muslims being president and some other things. So how do you deal with that part of the equation? Because you have to keep cleaning up these comments.
Well, I don't deal with it, to be honest with you, because we're living in a culture now where you have a group of people who just sit there. They don't try to listen to what you're saying. They're just trying to find a defect so that they can cause more division. They're trying to divide our nation into factions. War on women, age wars, income wars, religious wars, race wars, you name it. Anytime there's an opportunity to drive wedges in, I actually believe that American people are smarter than that, and they're not going to allow themselves to be manipulated as much as they have in the past. I believe they're waking up, quite frankly.
But does it bother you that I understand what you're saying, but does it bother you that you're spending time, you're doing it again here right now, sort of, saying, oh, well, here's what I meant to say. As a candidate, do you need to get better at saying what you mean?
I don't think so, actually. I think people know exactly what I'm saying, and they know exactly what the media is trying to do. And I think they're smarter than that. They're not going to be manipulated. So I'm not going to change and become, a vanilla envelope that they can accept. They're never going to accept me because I don't believe in political correctness. So I can twist myself into pretzels trying to fit into their silly little box, or I can be who I am. And we need people who are willing to stand up and talk what's logical right now.
So we've talked about the appearance of your comments. Now I want to talk about the substance of your comments. And you posted something on Facebook. You talked about the fact that you lost 2 of your cousins to gun violence in the streets in Detroit growing up. You say, as a doctor, I spent many a night pulling bullets out of bodies. There is no doubt that the senseless violence is breathtaking, but I never saw a body with bullet holes that was more devastating than taking the right to arm ourselves away.
And if you go to page 60 of A More Perfect Union, the new book, and read about what I say about guns and America, and about Daniel Webster, who said that America would never suffer tyranny because the people are armed. And, there are a list of countries, I named them in there, where they first disarmed the people and then tyranny took over.
I want to ask you, though, put yourself in the Oval Office, and there's a school shooting that happens in the country, right? What are you advocating? What are you saying in your comment about what you would do in that situation? What do we need to do to make people safer?
Well, there are a number of things. First of all, we need to be studying the shooters in these mass shootings and gathering as much information as we can about early warning signs in their lives. Many of them have psychiatric histories. And we need to empower our mental health professionals to do more in these situations.
What about the training side? Because you're basically, do we need to tell kids, here's what you should do in this situation?
Absolutely.
What would you tell kids to do?
I would give them a number of different scenarios. You have to train them of how to react in each of the different scenarios, as you do teachers. I personally believe we need to have people in schools who are armed, who are trained, who can help in
Former
those
police
situations.
officers, teachers, who?
There are a lot of retired police officers who are available.
Yeah.
I think certain teachers with the right disposition can be trained.
People will say that's pretty tricky to figure out who
Well, they
those,
have to have
who
the
those
right-
certain teachers
yeah,
are.
right.
I want to get to your thoughts on Syria as well in the limited time that we have. The most recent information that we have, and we know that Putin is taking action in Syria.
Right.
He's being asked to help out in Iraq, where we've been trying to help out for years. In Turkey, they're doing flyovers, and now we have information that they are tracking, they're shadowing our Predator drones, the Russians are,
Right.
over Syria. So you're president, you hear that news, what do you do?
Well, first of all, recognize that Vladimir Putin is a very ambitious guy.
Right.
And he was very disappointed with the dissolution of the Soviet Union, and particularly with their loss of influence throughout the world, and particularly in the Middle East. He's in the process of trying to reestablish that. We need to recognize that, and we need to stand firm.
But how is what my question, because I've heard you say all of that, and I appreciate that. But what would you do? Would you pick up the phone? Would you, shoot down his planes that are going too close to ours? What would you do?
Of course I would contact him, and we would stay in communication. I would let him know what we are going to do. We are not going to back away, as his generals suggested, and stay out of certain areas.
Would you shoot down his planes if they're getting too close to ours?
I would establish a no-fly zone, particularly along the Turkish border, and it would be a no-fly zone. And I
So
would
if you
make
go
that
in it,
very
you're going to get
clear.
shot down.
I would make it very clear to them that that's the case. But not only there in Syria, but around the world. We have to face him down, and we have to take advantage of his weakness. His weakness is economic right now because oil prices are so low. We need to take advantage of that.
All right. Dr. Carson, thank you.